Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Let's crack on, shall we?
just a second. I'm just shutting my Skype and it makes that noise. There we go. It's done it.
Let me do mine as well. Status do not disturb. That doesn't stop some people, though, does it?
No, that's why I turned mine off.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so your week then. It sounds like it's been as challenging as mine.
It has been challenging, actually. I was looking forward to 4 days off over the weekend. You know how much I like my time off.
Oh, yes.
And somehow, by about Sunday or Monday, I got to the place where I completely lost faith in the world. All I could see was horrible people doing horrible things, governments and wars and vaccinations and charities and you name it. It just all looked like, you know, sometimes I think particularly as an entrepreneur, actually, sometimes the world gangs up on you. I'm going to give you an example because I suspect you might not know about this. You know, one of the ways, well, perhaps my only way at the moment of providing a pension for myself is through my buy-to-let property portfolio.
Yeah.
Did you know that the government have done away with mortgage interest as a tax-deductible expense?
No, I didn't realise that. That's a massive impact on...
Well, can you think of any business in the world where your expenses are not deductible?
Well, your biggest expense often.
Well, your only one, really, to be honest. Your only one. And so suddenly, at a stroke, I mean, it has a massive impact. It's unfair. It's outrageous. It plays into the thought that landlords are scam merchants, not somebody like me trying to stand on her own 2 feet, providing nice homes for people who need them to live in. Sometimes it all gangs up on you, and it just, everywhere you look, you know, from the injustice system to the, you know, creeping tax rules. And it's not even as though I'm, you know, a fat cat, quite the opposite. And so it's just suddenly, and then you read that pharmaceutical companies have invented a vaccination, so then they invent the disease and infect everybody with it so they can make money. It just on Easter Monday, not a particularly good day to have thoughts like this. It was like, oh my God, everywhere I look, there's, you know, corruption and profiteering and mean unfairness. And so I had a bit of a meltdown, actually.
Oh, God.
I'm nearly over it now, Nicola. I mean, nothing's changed, but I'm nearly over it now. And I'm being much more ruthless about it. Quite a lot of my friends are very political and share things like this. I mean, even your beloved sister, who I follow, Heather, who I follow on Facebook, and want to stay following her because I want to know where she's going in the world and what she's doing with her singing. Yeah. But she's one of those people who will share links off the BBC, which are fear-mongering. So, you know, I know why, because she was going to Brussels last week. So there's a lot of Brussels updates from the BBC. And, you know, lots of journalists who work for the BBC have come out now and said you can't even trust what the BBC put out. And you know, where does your faith in human nature go if you can't trust the BBC? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that is a good point. Nobody trusts the government, but the BBC are supposed to be, mind you, having said that, they weren't very trustworthy over Jimmy Savile, were they?
Well, exactly. You see, things that you're proud of as a Brit and think you can trust in, you can't. And I think this is a job, this is something I've experienced a lot in my life as an entrepreneur. I remember discussing it with you once on a Money Gym call where Sharon, who's a mutual friend and client, a property professional, you know, we noted, she and I, that every opportunity for an entrepreneur to make a buck was being closed slowly, one by one by one. And in the end, that gets a bit dispiriting.
Yeah, it does a little bit, especially when you're being pinched at the other end as well, as well, per my email.
Yeah, quite. Yes. So I'm sort of over it now. I've written my newsletter about it now. I've realised that there's only two or three at first I thought there were two things you can do about it. You can only control what goes into your body and what goes into your mind. So up the intake of green smoothies.
Yeah.
Unfollow a lot of content of people who are politically minded and blame the blue government for it. Frankly, if we were to switch sides, we would be blaming the red government. The government is just puppets of the big industries and the big money, frankly, so it's irrelevant to me. But unfollow that, so I'm controlling what I see and read. And then I realised yesterday that my first inclination when feeling this on Sunday or Monday was to go and write it all down in a long ranty Word document, because I didn't want to publish it and pass it on to the rest of the world, although I don't rule that out yet. But then I realised that writing helps me get clear about how I feel about the world. So up green smoothies, up writing, reduce political or nasty input. That's my solution.
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm ruthless about not following and friending people who share stuff that make me feel bad. In Heather's case, I didn't realise she was in Brussels until I saw the thing about her being nearly caught up in the riot bit. So I was a bit behind the beat on that one. But
you see, that's a good example. You can't unfollow your sister. I can't. I don't want to unfollow your sister, and she's not a particularly political person, But that is an example of what I'm talking about, which is to share scaremongering, which might not even be true. I mean, I know the events were true, but we're now told that we can't trust the output of the BBC.
Yes, I remember when I was on that road trip, and the boys who are very, up on things like this, having done a lot of research about nutrition and things, were telling me about how the government had this thing about fluoride. There had a lot of fluoride being produced as a byproduct of manufacturing, and they were trying to think what to do with it. So they commissioned someone at one of the universities to find a tenuous use for fluoride that they could then sell the general population. And hence the thing about brushing your teeth every day. An ad agency on Madison Avenue was tasked with the job of getting us all to clean our teeth with fluoride toothpaste, so that they could not just get rid of it but sell it to us.
Well, worse than that, they put it in our drinking water, and it's bad for almost everybody except children. I worked for a professor of nutrition at Oxford University in the 70s, and I know precisely how bad fluoride is for you, and he was deeply against it. But once it's gone out big styly like that for commercial interests, you can't do anything about it.
That is cynical in the extreme, isn't it? When we're trying to be ethical entrepreneurs as well, when you hear about that kind of huge criminal cynicism, I have to fight very hard not to feel very
Nicola, helpless. Everywhere I looked on Monday, that was all I could see.
Well, it's a cheery start to the show, isn't it?
Yes, so well, you did ask. So sorry. Now, tell me about your week.
Well, I'm afraid I've got another little bit of bad news for everyone.
Oh.
But I discovered over the weekend that I was sort of thinking about this whole thing about mobile, because there was, I don't know if I've told you, but there was one point in the Gary Vee chat last week where he picked up the DJ's laptop and was brandishing it, and I thought, oh my God, he's going to throw it on the floor. And so did the DJ think that. His face was absolutely panic stricken, because they pretty much, desktops and laptops are, I've noticed this with Facebook ads as well, we're getting much more response and quality response from mobile than we were from desktop. And I have noticed that every time I go and move somewhere else from my desktop and start using my laptop, I start to think, where's my phone? Because there's certain things now that I can only do on my phone because the apps are not on the desktop or the laptop. And the laptop is like a desktop. Let's just call it, computers. And it made me realise that it made me remember the statistic that 90% of active monthly Facebook users are on a mobile device, whether that's a phone or an iPad. Because we always think of iPads as being a bit like laptops and desktops, but they're not. They function completely differently. So I thought to myself, I'm just going to go and have a look at my sites on a on an iPad and on my phone. And I discovered, to my horror, because obviously I've got one of the most up-to-date themes there is, that it didn't work on mobile devices. Because if you click the menu thing that said products and services, it didn't do a drop down, and it took you back to the homepage. So nobody for about at least the last 3 to 5 months have been able to look at my products and services. on a mobile device. My sites just weren't working on mobile. So I fixed it, obviously, immediately in panic Saturday night. Just 5 minutes before dinner was served, I was on the desktop trying to fix this. But it made me realise that most people who haven't even got an up-to-date website, it probably doesn't work on mobile at all, or it probably can't be seen on mobile, or the pop-ups are obscuring the entire site, or you can't make the pop-ups go away because the pop-up crosses out of vision or something. And I thought, bloody, excuse me, mustn't go too profane, otherwise we'll have to give it an obscenity thingy label. I just thought, this is crazy. The shift has been so sudden. It used to be, a year ago, it was something like 40-60 mobile to desktop stroke laptop. And now it's probably overwhelmingly mobile devices. So my advice to everyone right now is go and check your website on a mobile or an iPad and make sure it works. Yours does, Judith. I've checked it many times.
No, I knew that. But I tell you what's scary about that story for me, which is I do have an iPad and I like my iPad. When I replace it, I would consider replacing it with a mini iPad. But I don't have a smartphone. I don't want a smartphone. They're too small for me to see. And I think the worrying thing about that is, just as my mother would never have been able to park a car because she didn't use a mobile phone well enough, I don't really want to access my entire world through something as small as a smartphone. Now, I know they've made bigger smartphones, haven't they? Apple's got two versions where you've got a sort of quite a large one and then a larger one. So maybe the mini iPad, larger iPhone is the route for me. But I don't want my access to the world to become on a gadget smaller than either of those two, please.
I do think we're going to have to brace ourselves. I've got the larger iPhone 6 Plus, and I do use it for a lot of things. I found myself using my Kindle on it last night, and it's perfectly acceptable to read, even though it's...
But that's accessing data. Can you do anything?
Yeah.
I've got to go to the laptop.
Well, I'm with you there because I prefer the bigger screen. But when we were in London, I was struggling a little bit in poor light to use the lastminute.com website on my phone. But Phoebe just, I think it was because Phoebe was, she's got nimble fingers, good eyesight, and she was more impatient than me. She just grabbed it off me and did it in seconds. So, I do think I could have just pinched it to make it bigger. That's the thing we always forget about phones. You can, most of the time, pinch things to make them bigger. But no, it was a shock. It was a real shock to realise how mobile we've gone. And Gary Vee was saying last week, he used to carry a laptop around with him all the time, and now he just runs his business on his mobile. But obviously, he's not doing things like changing websites, sending out emails from Infusionsoft, etc. I think we are going to need a bigger device to do things like that. But just a shock how quickly it's gone so far towards a lot of stuff being mobile. Yeah. Oh, so on that happy note, what's fueled your fire this week?
Well, another way I realised I could cheer myself up was by throwing myself into work. And it's a bit of a strange week because we had Monday off for Easter bank holiday, and tomorrow we've got the day out for Steve's funeral. And Friday is my normal day off. So yesterday and today, Tuesday and Wednesday, the only days I've got this week. And consequently, they were rather long. They were sort of 12, they began early-ish and they ended late-ish. But actually, work's quite good therapy, isn't it? So as you'll know, particularly at the moment. So I'm packing my week into 2 days, and I did have somebody cancel yesterday, I think, and something lightened up today as well. So not quite such long days as I was anticipating, but I'm finding therapy in my work.
Oh, very good. Well, I've been fueled by fire this week by domain names, Judith, back to our old favourite game.
Yes.
We had a lovely time with you, me and Sarah and you, picking a domain name, which I absolutely love to bits now.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased. I'm not going to say it out loud because I know it's a secret, but I keep looking to see if you've banged the website up on it yet.
Any second now, Judith. Any second now. It's being done in the Philippines as we speak. I had to resist the temptation to do it myself because I'm really am capable of doing it, but I really don't. I'm trying to get out of the habit of doing that. So my beloved Chachi is doing it at the moment, and I'm looking forward to filling the gaps in on once she's done that, which should be today. Well, overnight, I'm hoping. But we and then we had another domain name flurry on Saturday. Was it Saturday night or Sunday night? I can't remember. Where Sarah's been looking for a name for one of her projects. Her main project that's going to be going forward, and we came up with something rather splendid there as well. It took a little while, and it took a bit of percolating and wandering about and trying different things because of course it's not just about the domain name, is it? You have to be able to secure the social media profiles as well. And
Yes.
that reminds me, I've got to go and do that for my new one. But no, it's a lovely game. We love it, don't we? Choosing names.
Oh, I do love it actually. When you Skype and say, "Have you got time to brainstorm the domain name?" It's like, oh my word, have I got time for that? Yes, it's my favourite game.
It's like catnip to you, isn't it? And the other thing is that I felt, we both felt actually, and we shouldn't feel like this, but we actually both felt that we had to have some sort of emotional connection with the name, because if you look at your domain name every single day, as we all do, you've got to feel a thrill when you see it. I mean, obviously you feel a big thrill because it's your name.
I don't really feel a thrill. I just feel a sort of, I don't want to say this word actually, because it's partly what we've chosen for your domain name. I won't say it. I feel good about it, obviously, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Warmth, affection, a coming home. It's our home online, isn't it? Our website. So it's got to make you feel good as opposed to just feel nothing.
Well, we were both encouraged, weren't we, to form a domain name by Thomas Leonard for every genius idea we've had. And I did that for a long time, and now I'm doing the opposite. I'm weeding them all away, getting rid of them, because they're quite expensive to have a lot of domain names for projects you tend to get round to one day.
Yeah, I've got most of mine not on auto renew, so as they come up, I have to review them, and some of them,
yes,
but the ones, obviously the important ones that I'm still using, I have on auto renew.
Yeah. Well, we have exactly the same strategy there. Yeah.
I've been helping clients enjoy happier lives for nearly 40 years. During which time I've enjoyed thousands of conversations with human beings in all their infinite variety. It makes a big difference to have someone with whom you can share things you might not have told another living soul, perhaps not even admitted to yourself. A confidant, an ally, a secret weapon. Now I've created Big Talk so that I can help you create a wonderful life through a series of significant conversations. You talk and I give you a damn good listening to. Our calls will raise your vibration and clear out all that stands between you and what you want. Big Talk will reshape your life, your work, your business, your ideas and your money. We'll talk about anything and everything. Visit judithmorgan.com to find out more about Big Talk and prepare for your magical transformation.
But no, they're very good. So what's our client challenge of the week, Judith?
Well, I'm not sure. Is it this one you emailed me yesterday?
It could be, or it could be.
Well, I think we've originally we were going to talk about treacle and turmoil, but I think we'll save that for another week. Talk me through this. Have you got this email handy? Because I have to confess I don't totally understand it, but I think I'll get into it if you explain it to me.
I'm afraid it's another rather negative one. so and it is something that everyone struggles with. It's basically the concept that in order to make things affordable for people, you often offer instalments. And what happens is that you whether that's for a service or a for a period of coaching, for example, and you offer instalments to make things attractive, and that people get perhaps other there's other benefits as well of signing up and making a decision and making a commitment. And then whether or not you then make people sign a contract, it's sort of almost irrelevant in a way. But what I've found over the last couple of months, since Christmas actually, is that some people have suspended the service because of very good reasons their end, but they then haven't adhered to the terms of the contract, which would enable them to keep the benefits that they signed up for in the first place. But they still expect those benefits, and they expect the suspension of the service to go on indefinitely, which is causing rather mild havoc with one's cash flow and various other things like that. In terms of having the right staff on hand to do the jobs that need doing. If all, say, 3 or 4 of them popped up at the same moment and said, right, we're ready to go again now. So I just wondered, what was your take on this? Because it's happened to me with coaching as well. Someone signed up for a year, paid a large instalment, perhaps had half a year's coaching, and then just tailed away and stopped paying. And how do you enforce online contracts? Should you even try to enforce online contracts, bearing in mind that people can just go off and, and talk badly about you very easily in groups and things? Would they do that if they felt that they had reneged on the contract? It's all quite challenging, but it's something that you have to get over if you're going to do business online. What do you do? I bet you don't get anyone signing contracts, do you?
Excuse me. I don't have contracts, no, and I'll tell you why. And you make that point in this email, actually, where you say, a supplier unwilling, unable to enforce terms. Contract is a good idea, and technically, a contract is a good idea because it puts both parties on notice about what they've both agreed to bring to the deal. So I think we all sign contracts a bit blindly these days. Over the weekend, putting my house on the market, I did take the exceptional step of printing out the contract and reading it before I signed it. And that's not in my nature, but I've been stung recently by contracts.
Yeah.
I do understand that contract law means that both parties must have skin in the deal. But the point you're making is that in the main, people like us can't or don't choose to spend legal fees fighting it. And I know, as a person who's just lost my home as a result of a contract law thing, that it isn't fair. I proved in court that the man hadn't lent me any money, but he still won. So here we go back to my gloomy start. So that, as far as I'm concerned, rules contracts out. But I'm in the business of coaching. You were once, you're in another one. The one you're in now is more commercial, and I think contracts are more important in your business than they are in mine. And I let people, my clients, one of my expressions is easy in, easy out, simply because I know the wrong clients will come and leave fast, and the right ones will come and stay forever. So how would a contract improve that?
Well, I know you do sort of special 10 months, 12 months for the price of 10 kind of deals.
Well, I'm thinking of doing away with that, Nicola. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
2 reasons, actually. Do you remember somebody telling us recently, in the last 3 years or so, I think it might have been Veronica Pullen, who's very up on this sort of detail, that if you offer instalment plans, you're effectively in the business of finance broking, and you need to be regulated for that.
Yeah, I think it depends. If it's less than 4 instalments, it doesn't count, but just
okay.
It's irrelevant.
Well, that's worth knowing then. I think the more people that pay you in full in advance, the more skin they have in the deal in the absence of a contract.
Yeah, I'm going to get rid of instalments entirely.
Well, I think I might too, because I want to work with a client for at least a year. And there are plenty of ways of them finding 1,500 quid in advance. One of my clients' dad lent it to her. You can get it. Lots of people can get 0% credit cards. Lots of people have got it in the deposit account. Maybe my ideal client is somebody like a new one the week before last who just said, I'll send you 1,500 quid tonight. Maybe that's my ideal client.
Yeah.
Now, instalments are nice, but they need auditing. So I often talk my clients out of offer. I do them, and I don't mind auditing them. Every month I say, I'm expecting these instalments and I've received them. Now, there comes a point where if somebody's signed up for, say, a year, we're getting towards the end of the contract. I did a marvellous deal in 2013 where they got twice as much for half the price. So for £1,000, they got 24 calls. And people took advantage of that, but there are a small number of people who are doing precisely what you're saying, which is they're not taking their last 1 or 2 calls. I wouldn't say they're enormously drawing down benefits of still being in the groups, but they are still in the groups. And then I'm in this place where I think, right, should I take them out of the group, or should I assume they're not going to renew, or should I communicate with them, ask them what their plans are? And what I decided in the end was at Christmas, I told you last week, I always do this work in progress calculation where I know who's paid in advance and how much I owe them. At Christmas, I wrote to them all and said, at my coming up 2016 financial year end, which is the 31st of August, if you haven't taken your last remaining outstanding session, I won't owe it to you anymore.
That's very good to have that very clear, because What the other thing I sent you on that email was something that's come up with dealing with Steve's clients, which is a client signed up for 2 websites, got a special deal on the second, has never supplied him in over a year with the materials he needed to make that second website, and is now hassling his mother for a refund.
Well, I think this, when you mentioned this one 2 weeks ago, I said I don't think you owe that person any money at all. And I'll tell you why, is that I've got lots of clients like Steve who run websites. Marion did for a long time, and I've probably worked with a dozen people who run the same business model as Steve's. And the real drag of that business model is waiting for clients to produce content. And to a certain extent, I think that applies in your current business as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When they got to get there. Yeah, I think there should be a time limit on that. And a lot of clients benefit very much from having a deadline. And if they don't provide it by a certain date, then all bets are off.
Yeah, and there's definitely an emotional component to this, because I definitely get emotionally impacted by it, whereas a couple of mentors, I'm in James Shrampcro's group, and there's a couple of people in there who have come up with very good advice on how to deal with these situations, and they always make it positive for the client, which is great, and they say things along, but time bound, like you say, so that people don't think they can just carry on for months on end, not making it a priority, and then come back and get all the benefits, 6 months later for something they haven't actually been paying for. So, I think there's definitely an emotional charge around it for me still, which I'm getting better at dealing with.
There is for me too. And I think it's messy as well. So whenever I look at my spreadsheet, every client with whom I'm in a relationship, it chunks down every month. But there's 50% of them who in that column I write same, meaning they didn't draw anything down this month. And they're quite small sums of money I owe them, £43, £83, £394 as I think about the largest. And if I were to add all that up, it would be clean just to refund them. But frankly, why should I? They bought something and they haven't used the tail end of it. I'm not sure why they haven't. I've put them on notice now. There has to come a cut-off point, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you join David Lloyd, you're expected to join for a minimum of a year. And if you don't go to the gym, then you're not going to. That's why we all called our things gyms, wasn't it? Because if you don't go to the gym, then you don't get the benefit of the thing, but you don't get a refund.
Well, and they police that very rigorously, because I tried to get a refund of unpaid gym subs once in Canary Wharf for a particular reason. I'd even got medical evidence for it, but no siree, there was no money coming back in my direction, which I think is fair enough. And where your contract comes in handy is where you can point and say, as per the terms of my contract, I'm not required to make you a refund.
So then what about the client who goes public with that? I mean, it hasn't happened to either of us.
Well, it hasn't. I think that you and I, and actually the advice I give to clients, not a lot, but frequently there's a conversation about, should I give them a refund? And by and large, we give refunds quite quickly for the reason that you described just now, which is it gives a good outcome for the client. My favourite thing in this is Chris Barrow's advice. Do you remember about how it's a chance to win somebody round? Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Let me see if I can remember it exactly. When something goes wrong, if you handle it right, you can get a raving fan for life.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it makes you feel better.
Yes, it does. I think the thing with instalments is this. What we should really do is put all the money in our deposit account. This is the correct accounting treatment as well. We should put it all in our deposit account and draw it across to our current account as we deliver on our part of the contract. So if you've got £1,000 in advance and they've got 2 years to take the calls, I should take 1/24 across from deposit to current once a month. Okay. So then it's been expensed is the terminology here, and they're not entitled to a refund, because the embarrassment when we have to refund people is because we've used it in our cash flow. But if we'd ring fenced it and only drawn it across as we delivered, you'd done a third of their work, so you take a third from their fee across to your current account and spend it. And then you've got 2/3 ring fenced if they want some money back. And I think that's probably the only way. And then if you've got the money and you haven't spent it, it's painless to pay it back. And now, having said that, the tone of your email is all a bit, it's unfair. It's all weighted on their side. And yes, that is unfair.
It was because it wasn't so much about refunds per se, because I always do the work, so I don't give refunds. And in fact, my terms of business say no refunds, because we have done the work. But the other thing is that if a client signs up for instalments, so say for example, it's I don't know, it's a £12,000 top end coaching program, and we know from Rich Sheffrin's advice that you should always front load. If you're going to offer instalments on that, you should front load it.
I agree.
So you always ask for more than 60% as the first instalment. But then what some people seem to do is sign up thinking they're going to make that money back and more in a certain time frame that's in their head. And then they get to the second instalment being due, and they either don't have the money because they didn't provide for the whole amount, or they think I should have made it back by now and I'm not going to pay because I haven't. So where does that leave you in terms of going forward with further coaching, for example?
I wouldn't ever want to find myself in that situation, but I think if they're not paying their instalments, they're not meeting their side of the contract, and the relationship has to end. You can't deliver, can you?
And then what if they ask for a refund?
So is 12,000? Well, not going to get a refund because is 12,000 say for a year?
Yeah, let's just say some example of an illustration. Let's just say it is.
All right. So, and how much is front loaded? How much have they paid me up front?
Well, just say if 60% would be 10% would be 100, so 60 would be 600. Say they paid 8,000 with the remainder to pay over the next 2 months.
Right. Tricky.
And you get to the end of month one, and somehow in their head they thought they should have made it back by then.
Well, they're mad, aren't they? I think if somebody paid me 8,000, I'd probably let them stay for 3/4 of the year.
Yes. But what even though they've said they haven't got the money to pay you the rest, or they're not going to pay you the rest?
Well, they've got 8 months to pay it, now not a month, haven't they?
Yeah. Interesting.
If I was James Schramko, I probably wouldn't. One of those big boys, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably be a bit more butch.
Yes. Yeah, I think. Okay, so what can we draw out of all of this as practical advice for people going forward? I think.
I tell you what it is. It's that people are messy and muddly. If we were doing business with computers, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, because it would all be nice and cut and dried and clean.
Yeah, it would, and unemotional.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a contract, if only to make sure that both parties understand. And that it could be a one-page contract that gets signed online by something like Right Signature, which makes signing contracts online very easy. And, it's an online software tool. Definitely have a contract, just because, I do always send a follow-up email outlining what we've agreed, but perhaps it needs to be a bit more formal than that. It's definitely that more formal, and there is a contract for clicks and leads. So I can point to certain elements of the contract, but it's just that thing of wanting to please a client and not wanting to carry on having to work with a client who isn't happy with you.
No, I know. I tell you what I'm remembering as well, and I thought this last night when you sent me the email. What the client has to understand is that they're making one purchasing decision, not as many purchasing decisions as there are instalments. So if I buy this program, I am committing to £12,000 of expenditure. That's my responsibility. Are you with me?
Yeah. And
so do you remember in the Money Gym, we used to offer monthly instalments. What that does is it gives people the chance to think they're renting it by the month, like a television set in the olden days. You're not. You're buying £12,000 worth. You're buying a year's program. Now, we, out of the kindness of our hearts, maybe, although we're thinking about it again, are offering you easy payment terms. So that's not renting it by the month. Do you understand? What they have to understand is you're only making one purchasing decision. You're in or you're out. And if you're in, you've got to pay it all, either up front or front loaded, or what instalment package you've chosen.
So that's a psychological shift for the client, isn't it?
Well, I think that's a point that's really got to get across. You're not renting it by the month. So some of my clients pay me 50, 75 and 100 and 150 a month. They're not renting it by the month. They've chosen the instalment option of a long-term commitment.
And I just think it's unenforceable. So I'm just going to not offer instalments anymore.
Well, I think that's a good idea. Do you know what I think the whole essence of this conversation about is that the longer we're in business, the cleaner we want it to be.
The cleaner we want it to be?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Because, once emotion gets involved in business, do you think there's a particularly female problem?
No, I don't. But another thing comes to my mind now that I've said that, which is in your contract, if you're going to take all the money in advance and you say in your contract what you're going to do, you have to do that. And if you don't do that, or it doesn't meet your client's satisfaction, you are going to have a conversation with them about their disappointment.
Yeah.
And address that somehow if they've got a fair point.
Yes.
Mine's different from yours in that regard. Yours is a bit more performance-based within subject to certain criteria, because you do perform your work. There is an expectation of results, but you can't guarantee them because of the vagaries of, I don't know,
their funnel. Yeah. Once you deliver the leads into their funnel, that's when we have the problems. If their funnel doesn't then convert the leads, they want to.
Well, is there a way of testing that their funnel works before you take them on? If not, you're ill-advised to take them on, I think.
Well, exactly. Yes. I mean, I had a long conversation with someone yesterday who wanted to know if we could get to. She's in a business-to-business environment, and I have found that very challenging in the past. So, to get to specific people within specific companies who may or may not have a certain job description. In this case, they may have up to 5 different job descriptions. Would they be identifying themselves on Facebook by those job descriptions? Highly unlikely. So, we had a long conversation about how you could get in front of them, and it involved basically her getting a database of those people put together so we could put it into Facebook and advertise to them. And so we did, I did have this conversation. I said, look, this is going to be either an expensive investment that works. It's going to be an expensive investment that doesn't work. And there is no way to tell short of doing a test. And there's no way to do a test without you actually just going through the training course, trying it for yourself and seeing what kind of results you get. Having said that, if you get any results at all, then it's likely I'd get better results because I know how to do it. I know how to do it better than you do. Yeah. But the other option is to try and find someone who would go through the course and do the basics to see if you get any results at all, because any results means better results from me. But it was an interesting conversation because I can't guarantee, and I can't guarantee when I get leads that it's going to convert in their funnels, and that is another challenge. So really, I'm looking for clients now that have got a proven product to market match, who aren't going to have a wobble after 6 weeks because their funnel isn't converting as they thought it would.
The harder you work before you take on a client to rule out those people that don't match those criteria, the easier your business life is going to become.
Yes, very true. I mean, I was having a conversation about this whole contract thing because I had one client who signed up, paid, signed the contract, and then changed her mind within a week. And I remember. Yeah, and I immediately refunded because it was, it hadn't even hit my bank account yet. But, when I was telling someone about this, a business person we know, they were incredulous that someone could sign a contract, pay the money, and then change their mind straight away.
Well, again, back to the contract I signed over the weekend with the estate agents. I've got 2 weeks to change my mind.
Yeah. Is that in common law? Is it 2 weeks?
I think it's to do with, I think some sort of fine. I'd signed it in their offices. I wouldn't have that, but because I signed it by myself at home, I've got a 2 week cooling off period.
Yeah, that's the selling act then, isn't it?
Yeah, and it may be in your contract, it would be good to have a period of time, could be 7 days or whatever, in which people can change their mind so that you don't whip into action and spend quite a lot of their money before they've gulped and really thought about it. I don't know.
God, no, that wouldn't fly at all. They want their lead straight away. They don't want to wait 2 weeks for them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You've got to make it clear to them. You see, as you sign this contract, I will go into frenzied action immediately and spend the bulk of your money up front.
Yeah.
I don't understand why your clients don't understand. Quite frankly, they just annoy me.
Well, it's. I think as you go through, the other thing to remember is business changes, it evolves. Your business is going to evolve as you have a little hiccup like these. then you will change the terms of your contract, and you will try and legislate for that, which unfortunately then means a less favourable contract for the client, because you're trying to legislate for all these things that have gone wrong in the past.
Well, all of these behaviours that people exhibit.
Yeah, exactly. And I am quite brutal on the initial discovery call. I do say, this is, I charge 3 months up front, and it is payable up front, because people have a wobble halfway through the 3 months when they find out their funnel's not performing as well as they hoped it would. And that's when you have to get to work and really start fixing the funnel as the leads are flowing through. So I am quite brutal about what happens.
What would cause a funnel not to work?
Well, because it's never been tested. They've never tested it. They've spent hours creating it, but never tested it.
Don't take them on. Make them prove to you their funnel works.
If I'd not taken clients on like that, I wouldn't have had a business so quickly.
And then I would go back and review how many clients I've got that it's actually worked with, whether their funnel was working and they knew that, or happily, accidentally it worked. Yeah. Or do you see what I mean? I would analyse the funnel working ratio to the disappointment factor. Yeah.
So it's not just about having good contracts. It's about good client qualification in the first place.
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, and do you do any client qualification beyond speaking to them, or do you just know now who's a good client?
No, I don't really, but I offer the easy in, easy out. If they don't like it, they can leave. I don't see any benefit to them hanging around with me. It's a different thing, If they paid me 100 quid and had an hour and they don't want another one, what have I lost?
Yeah, well, I think that's the other thing, isn't it? It's the many business model versus the few higher paying business model. That's where I started Clicks and Leads, with the idea that it was going to be like a WP curve for Facebook ads. But once I found out how much work was involved in setting up a Facebook ad campaign, I then went more up market. So interesting conundrum.
I think you're right there. So I've written down contracts, instalments, and client qualification. Those are the issues, really. And I think we're not going to sue on the basis of the contracts. We haven't got the time or the energy on the money, but it should focus people's attention. And I've been lax in the past at contracts, but I've learned my lessons, so I'm trying a bit harder now. Payment by instalments, we're both of us thinking of doing away with it, because actually you want clients to have skin in the deal. Yeah. And client qualification, in your case, is about the product. Is the funnel, is their funnel working? Yeah. And in my case, it's about, are they an ideal client? Which frankly, I think neither of us know on day one. So there's a little bit of, if they're motivated, they are. I mean, my instalments work the other way as well, which I've got several clients who are in their, third year, because another £100 a month is nothing to them. And the work we do together is worth more than that. So it works both ways, I think. And typically, of course, like every conversation I have with a client, we're focused here on what's wrong. I.e., we're glossing over how much of your business and how much of mine goes right without a problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's a challenge. They're not challenges unless they're challenging, are they?
No, that's why I reframe quite a lot of them as opportunities, isn't it? Because we can't. Yeah, and I think that's what's wrong with coaching, is that we often spend too much time talking about what's wrong.
Yeah. No, good opportunity. So, just out of interest, then, where would one go about getting a coaching contract? Because I do a bit of it occasionally. I'd quite like to have a contract.
Well, you do what my solicitor Ben always says, that you write it down in plain English on one page of A4. What are you going to do? What do you expect them to do? That's it.
And then think about all the things that could go wrong and put in a paragraph to deal with each.
Well, you can probably get that down to one paragraph if it goes wrong for any reason.
Yeah.
Now, I'm having a thought here. You said earlier something about signatures. Adobe, I can, if you put it in a PDF and send me a PDF, I can sign that. So I don't need some special software.
And you need to sign every page, don't you?
You can. The estate agents maybe do that, but I wouldn't. Well, because I would get it on one page if I could.
Yeah, but if you do have more than one page, it's a good idea to get signatures on each page, because that means that you can't change the wording on the other pages, and neither can the client.
I think the estate agents had a fantastic online thing where I put in name as my signature, and I put in my initials, and it put my initials on every page, and my name and where my signature was.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's what Right Signature does. You have to initial every page. Yeah. Cool. Okay, well that's good. Hopefully there's been some value in that for other people. It's not about being afraid to take clients on. It's about having a clear way of communicating your expectations and making sure that their expectations are going to be met by you.
And I think perhaps where possible, choosing a business minimises these risks.
Yeah, absolutely. By not doing, for example, both of us, we asked for money up front, so that's a big.
Or not doing something where people are, going to be disappointed in one way or another.
Well, I don't think we can legislate for that because people have strange expectations they don't voice on the initial calls.
Well, yours is a higher risk than mine. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which ultimately might be quite a serious business risk, I think.
Yeah, it needs to be. Yes, definitely moving into a more business-like environment.
Well, I think actually what you want is abundant clients.
Abundant clients who are with proven products and routes to turn leads into sales. That's what I need.
And none of us want, any of us want, you, me, or listeners, is scarce clients who can't really afford it, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Right, word of the week then.
Well, I'm going back to my Monday feelings of overwhelmed. I'm picking the word sensitive, which is what I am, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Oh, bless you. But, you did reach out to people on Monday, and everyone gave you lots of lovely recommendations for things to cheer you up. Did you take them up on any of it?
I've seen all of the films. I downloaded a few. I think the mood I was in wouldn't have been cheered up by anything, to be honest. I downloaded a few Kindle samples and then started most of them, but didn't have the patience to finish. I was just cross. About the state of the world. I got crosser, actually. After I put out the initial appeal, I need uplifting stuff, I went off and wrote it down. And when I listed it, the list went on for a very long time. And funnily enough, there were a lot of things that instinctively I've steered away from in my life, even before I was old enough to know. So I don't know, Nicola. Anyway, let's go back there. I'm sensitive. Okay.
Okay. Well, this is something actually that applies to both of us. My word is grit. It's a verb, as in grit your teeth and get on with it, which is what I have been doing this week. I've just had to grit. All I wanted to do was stay in bed all day, and I've managed to grit my teeth and get up and largely carry on. And the other one is an adjective, which has been to have grit, which I think both of us and many of our listeners do. So, about being brave again, isn't it?
Yeah. And sometimes business, isn't a lovely, cuddly pink thing, sadly. Occasionally grit is required.
Yeah, absolutely. And we both have it in spades, so let's just shovel a pile of grit and get on with it this week.
We've certainly got enough between us, yes. I think not
to be confused with any other word that might rhyme with grit. So who or what's impressed you this week then?
Oh, we haven't done project updates yet.
Oh, God. No, we haven't. I keep forgetting that bit. I don't know why.
I think you're using an old template, aren't you?
No, I'm just writing them ad hoc now. Project updates. Okay, project updates. Well, I've got this new... It's not a new project. It's a variation on the existing project that will go out to a different market in a different way.
Which I've just realised, of course, without telling the listener, because we're not allowed to yet, but it'll do away with all those problems we've just discussed.
It will, but it's scaring the living daylights out of me because it's not an inbound attraction marketing. It's a very set system that is quite traditional and scares the living daylights out of me. Okay. But because of that, it will be something that I won't have to do for very long personally. So it doesn't involve, because what I do at the moment is largely attraction marketing, personality marketing, all that stuff. And this will all be done in such a way that it can be handed off to someone else as quickly as possible following a system.
Well, in a way, I think that'll be better. It's less emotionally messy, actually. The personality marketing is about you as a human being and likely to lead to these uncomfortable things we've just been discussing, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm looking forward to building a machine, which is what I will be building, and seeing if that machine will work in a traditional fashion, which is quite an interesting thing for me. And that's it on the project updates. Apart from the fact, just to let everyone know that your reviews still count. We're still rising on our average download numbers. We're actually I sent Judith a little picture during the week, which is interesting because every download now seems to have 2 or 3 days at peak download numbers rather than just the one on Friday and then tailing off during the week. So I think that's where people are sharing the podcast, Judith, and we're having these sort of 3 mini peaks rather than, one that tails off. So thank you very much, everyone listening, and keep up the reviews if you haven't reviewed us yet. It means a lot. What are your project updates then?
Well, I mean, the 4th and final week on Friday, which will be the 1st of April, is the 4th and final week of trying to flush everybody out of my newsletter that was hovering on the brink of becoming a client. And I was taking on somebody over the weekend who is a podcast listener, Linda from New Zealand. Hello, Linda, because she helped me remember. She helped me remember why I was doing that. It's because if I do work with these 2 big companies, I have to start charging people VAT. So that means that for most of my clients are not VAT registered, and I like to stay out of the VAT club if I possibly can. But if I have to do that, my fees will automatically become 20% more expensive, not to existing clients, because I'll take the hit on that, and most of them are paid in advance. But
then let's not gloss over that point. If you do go VAT registered, you have to either charge your clients more or take the hit of it. I've got one client where I am actually losing 20% of what they were originally paying me because... Well,
the few I've got remaining on monthly instalments, I will have to take the hit, yes. Because I took them on at that rate, and that's the rate it is. I won't suddenly be putting it on top. I do have a few clients who are VAT registered, and it makes no difference to them, so I would put it on top. But that was the reason why I was in this frenzy of, before the 1st of April, I've got to get all of these people who want to. I've completely forgotten the whole point was, because otherwise I'll have to charge you VAT. It was only Linda from New Zealand asking me, does this include or exclude VAT, that reminded me, oh God, this was all about VAT. So I thought that was rather funny. But anyway, the point of this story is, I'm now up to talking to 16 clients who are lurking in my newsletter list and have come forth out of the fear of might not be availability. So that's quite fun.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So that, for the marketing story on that is create real deadlines. Don't make them up by any stretch of the imagination, but do just let people know that there is a deadline looming for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It helps people make decisions, good decisions.
It does, yes, and it helps people. It helps my clients do work as well. Actually, a deadline is an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're on to who or what's impressed then.
Oh, well, the day the estate agent came, I had the house cleaned. Do you remember last week by a nice woman from Bulgaria who I was very excited about? And then last Thursday, I had 2 chaps from fantastic gardeners come round and do the garden in, I think it was 4 hours each, so 6 to 8 hours altogether, which was too much. But the website wouldn't let me book 6, which was a bit annoying. But I've learnt my lesson there. But fantastic gardeners were fantastic. The garden looks fantastic. It was the 2-man team was led by Emile. They had all the right tools. What was particularly impressive is that, as you know, I've got quite a large patio here, and the gardener who laid it for me years ago and subsequent advisors have said that what we should have done was cemented in between each of the paving stones, because all that is just a brilliant opportunity for weeds to grow in the cracks. Yeah. And my former gardener and my current gardener and anybody else who's popped round here to help with the garden, it's the taking of the weeds out of the cracks is done on hands and knees with a hand tool. Oh, not last Friday. Emile had this strimmer that made really light work of the weeds between the cracks. And I thought, dear God, why have we all been struggling with this when the man just did it in 10 minutes? And then, of course, he had the blower. They blew it all away into a big compost heap down the side of the shed. I mean, it was just amazing. They were literally fantastic.
It sounds like it was a brilliant spectator sport as well, watching.
It was quite a good spectator, but noisy. I mean, it traumatised the cat, obviously, but the leaf blower and the strimmer and the those gadgets. Do you remember how your dad, I don't know if you can remember this, years ago used to start up a lawnmower by pulling on a string?
Oh yeah.
So all of these power tools sort of begin like that, and one that he intended to use to chop up a branch into bite-sized chunks so he could get rid of it. Well, that then didn't work at all. So he had to do that manually. But a power tool, Nicola, is a wonderful thing.
Well, a power tool in the hands of a hunky man is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not interested in them.
So next time it's a strimmer or nothing when it comes to the cracks in the patio. Anyway.
So can we expect photos of this newly?
Well, no, it looks a bit barren because everything's very neat and tidy. It's a bit like when you have a haircut; it's a bit short at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it's only the end of March. No leaves on the trees, nothing's flowering. The evergreens are out, but as I talk, there's a fox walking across the patio. It's a bit bare, a bit Spartan at the moment, to use one of your favourite words. There's nothing to look at, I'm afraid. But since the estate agent told me it would take 4 to 5 months, but between now and a buyer, spring will have sprung in terms of flowers and pots and things that'll look a bit better. No, at the moment, it's not photographic. It just looks neat and tidy.
Fair enough. That's always a pleasure. Neat and tidy. I've got to get my garden done now because it really does look a right old mess after the builders have been round. Good stuff. Okay, well, what's impressed me is the leveraging of content, and I think we need to do something with all of our brilliant content. We are both using the content to some degree, but I did meet an editor on the cruise, and I have kept her card, and I just think we've, seeing the way Gary has leveraged his content from his show, Ask Gary V, into a book, and then he went and created the audio by answering the questions again and actually updating the questions with his new thoughts. So it made the audio book a different buy indeed, and even someone who's read the book, as I just have and really enjoyed it, would be tempted to get the book just to hear his further thoughts on things. But so I think we really need to look at getting at least the client challenges into some sort of semblance of a book order. And the other thing is I need to, for the new project, I need some sort of content marketing strategy. And I think it's got to be more, less entrepreneur orientated and more business leader orientated. So I think the TBSF interviews, on the Business Success Factory podcast might provide the editor with some good content fodder for that. But leveraging content, that's my thing about, what's impressed me this week.
Okay.
Good stuff. All right. Well, sorry, it's been a bit neg this week. Lovely, lovely listeners, but hopefully we've picked up towards the end.
Normally 2 little rays of sunshine. We'll return in that mode as soon as possible.
We will next week, hopefully. Speak to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.